the money on it,
You'd say Alabama?
I gotta go with savings.
I looked at
You want me to say something about this one?
Oh, today was the day to make your payments, wasn't it?
I've done pretty good with it.
I think I was probably supposed to pay one.
Except again,
Yeah.
Savannah's just ready to go at 6.
Yes, it is ready to go.
All right, 6 o'clock. Call the January of 2022 Town Council meeting to order, and we will stand for prayer and pledge of allegiance. We don't have an area minister guest with us tonight, and so with council's permission, I'll offer an invocation for us. Lord, we give thanks for this beautiful place that we are able to live in and enjoy. And we're grateful for it. And we're grateful for our community. We're grateful for the employees that serve us here in town government. We ask for your help for those who are in need this evening. And we know there are many, either financially or perhaps health-wise or otherwise. We pray for our own police chief and his dad with his cancer illness. We pray for him and ask your help and healing and comfort for Scotty and his family, his dad. And we pray for other employees that for our town that we know are in need as well in some way, shape, or form. We give thanks for their service to us. We give thanks for all the good blessings that you have provided us and opportunities to serve. And we ask your blessing on our meeting this evening. And we ask our prayers in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can be seated. The only announcement I have is that we are having a special call board meeting this Friday morning at 8:30, and it's again on financing. This workshop really focuses on the town's ability to finance various projects and what sort of debt capacity we might have outside of the debt that we already have. That is primarily the focus, isn't it, Josh?
That's correct.
Right, and we have a presentation by
Davenport Public Finance.
Davenport Public Finance, which I think would be very helpful. So to check in and view it afterwards, if it's of interest, I think it would be a presentation of interest to a good many folks. I do have a proclamation this evening, a proclamation honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And let me read it. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired millions of Americans to participate in nonviolent protests to support the ideals of equality for all, and was a motivating force behind the civil rights movement that had at its goal a society that celebrates all races, cultures, and nationalities. And whereas the ideals of Dr. King and of Black Mountain's commitment to human rights are worthy of reflection and serve as a reminder that improving the quality of life for all members of our community is a responsibility of every citizen. And whereas the celebration of Dr. King's birthday is intended as a time for all Americans to reaffirm their commitment to the basic principles that underlie our Constitution, equality and justice for all. And whereas the town of Black Mountain encourages all citizens to rededicate themselves to the principles of respect for human rights and freedoms, of belief in nonviolence, and of commitment to improving our community through community service and volunteerism. Now, therefore, I, Larry B. Harris, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, on behalf of the town council and the citizens of Black Mountain, wish to honor and do hereby proclaim Monday, January the 17th, 2022, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Signed this 10th day of January 2022. So thank you for that, pulling that together, and it's always an honor to make that proclamation for the council to make it each year. Do we have any citizen comments this evening?
No.
Okay. Great, thank you. Our first presentation of the evening is from Hart and Hammer. And this, if you would, Ben, just recognize yourself and address and have a seat, and here's the microphone.
Would you like me to leave this?
You can take that off while you're speaking. We're distance from you enough, and I think you can hear better. And if you'd like, well, I guess you're addressing council, so that's okay. But just have a seat.
Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Ben Fortson, and I'm with Hammer and Hart, which is a nonprofit organization that was started back in March of 2021. And I'm just here to share with you what you're doing, what we are doing, and I'll let you know a little bit about our efforts and how you might be helpful to us. So I see you have a big screen. If the meeting goes too long, I'm assuming you're going to stream the football game. So to avoid that, I'll go quickly. I want to start by just telling you two quick stories. These are two individuals that we've helped in the community in the past few months. I'm using aliases because we want to protect these individuals' privacy. So the first person is Sally Milton. She worked in our community for over 25 years. She was widowed, had bad knees, living off her small pension, could not afford home repairs. And we found out about her. She had 3 entrances to her double wide home. And all 3 of them were dangerous, rotted, broken, missing rails. She is elderly and had trouble getting in and out of her home every day. So volunteers working through us built an accessibility ramp to her front door. We repaired her side door entrance, and we hired contractors to replace her back steps. So today, Sally's safe. She's happy, constant smile on her face. Her mom, who's in a wheelchair, can now visit her. And I just wanted to just briefly share a quote from her that she sent us recently. Hammer and Hart has done a great job on my home and is the nicest volunteers who know what they're doing. Everyone was professional and kind. My favorite repair was the new landing and steps to the backyard. Before Hammer and Hart replaced it, there was a gap of several inches between the door and an old landing that was on its last legs, and prefab stairs that were not the right height, and there were no railings. I was always worried me or my dog would be hurt. Now my dog goes flying out his doggy door and down the stairs to explore his yard and greet visitors. So she's pretty stoked. The second individual we're calling Donald Sawyer. He was living off food stamps and a Social Security check. He is the head of a 7-member household, which has 2 disabled adults in the home, lives in Swananoa, could not afford to repair their leaky roof. We found out about them, and we were able to address his roof. And basically the situation was he had been a mechanic in Swananoa for 30 years, lost his job due to health issues, and just could not afford to do the work to repair his roof, which every time it rained hard, it leaked. As you can imagine, a big problem. So we hired roofing contractors to repair the roof. They found 11 water damaged sheets of plywood. They did the repair work and then installed new shingles. The Sawyers wrote a nice note. Thank you so much for your kindness and assistance to our family. Our new roof is great. So these are just 2 examples of the kind of folks we're trying to help. These are impoverished, often elderly, disabled individuals who can't afford to take care of their homes. And the best place for them to be is to stay in their homes if we can keep them there, just in terms of their own mental health and their own self-interest. So our mission, to summarize, is Hammer and Hart provides urgent home repairs to neighbors of the Swananoa Valley who are financially unable to maintain their homes in a safe or livable condition. So we see ourselves as the middleman. We find folks who have a need, and basically we find out about them through our website, through references. A neighbor will call us. We hope the fire department, the sheriff's department, the police department will help us locate these individuals in their day-to-day work as they find individuals that are living in poor conditions. And then we raise funds to meet that need, and then we hire contractors to do the work. So it's a win-win for everybody, and we're super excited about it. And we just want our community to know what we're doing and build momentum for it. The key to our success is raising funds. Nothing happens unless we raise those funds. We were able, since March, in our first year, we raised $28,000 and we're able to put that to good work. And so we're super thrilled that our community has responded so eagerly. As you guys well know, we live in a very generous community and people really want to help. And so I just wanted to meet with you guys, let you know what we're doing, and give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Council, there are questions for Ben?
Okay, we have a website. It's hammerandheartwnc.org if you want to learn more. And you are welcome to contact me anytime if you find someone in our community who needs help.
So Ben, back on your presentation, once you identify the need, your organization isn't actually doing the repairs. You're engaging other contractors to do them?
Correct. We have volunteers that we occasionally use to build a ramp or paint. But we're trying to, with the major jobs like electrical issues,
Right.
roofing, we want to hire professional people
Right.
that have their own insurance and are going to do quality
I
work.
think that sounds good. It's the reason I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
it was understood. Now, I did have, which is reversed in the agenda, so I need to look at it again. Hammer and Heart. Are you all 501c3?
That is in the process. We've submitted our application
Yeah.
and just waiting for that to be approved. Our accountant tells us we have a good shot at it.
But yeah, I'm sure you do. Well, great. Any council?
So the source of funding right now is just contributions?
Yes,
individual
we
contributions,
hope
is that
to
correct?
eventually pursue grants and state and federal funding, but it's just going to take a while to put all that together. I'm the only part-time staff. I'm the executive director. I work 20 hours a week. The rest of our group is a volunteer board and volunteer advisory board and volunteers that help out.
Well, it's a great organization.
So
Really
thank you.
is.
Thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ben. Our next presentation is from Julia Weatherford and the Greenway Commission presentation. Hey, Julia, thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for letting me be here as well. Julia Weatherford, Chairman of the Greenways Commission, soon to be the Active Mobility Commission, I think, if you guys approve it. Black Mountain has an amazing vision for a town where you can walk and bicycle, and that shows because we have got approved by the council a Greenways master plan, a pedestrian master plan, a bicycling master plan, a 70 corridor study, which includes bike lanes and walkability. So that's incredible. We have stepped forward with a great vision, and it's very exciting to be part of that. So all of you are to be commended for that, and the planning department and the various councils, commissions. So the Greenways Commission has been looking in the last few months at some of what we think are the top-notch things that we need to look at, even though we are in the midst of this big federal funded program project. There's things that we should be looking at even in 2022 and going forward. And I'd like to go through those. I've got 5 points that the commission came up with. And I think it might be best if I just pause briefly at the end of each one in case people have questions. If that works?
That sounds fine.
Okay, I'll launch into it. Number one, maintenance. We believe that there needs to be stepped up, maintenance needs to be stepped up a notch on our greenways. This is specifically talking about greenways. To maintain usability, ensure safety, and enhance the beauty of our parks and green spaces. And I'm going to get right down in the weeds, so to speak here, listing some of the things that we have seen that need to be done and then how we might go about getting them done. Repairing cracks and bumps caused by roots is a really important one. And this is something that the Public Works has been doing regularly, and they should be commended for doing a great job, both on Village Way and Oaks Trail. Recently, they've fixed some major problems with that. So that's great, ongoing, that'll keep having to happen. 2, we need to maintain the full width of the paving by scraping back overgrowth and edging or mowing on both sides of the greenway. on at least an annual basis. This is particularly bad in the vicinity of the community garden, where the overgrowth leaves the walkable path only about 3 or 4 feet wide. We've had volunteer groups working on that over the years, and it does come back. So that's an annual thing that needs to happen. Other parts of the garden side of Veterans Park also become narrowed to the point where two-way traffic is hard. Number 3, we need to clip and saw back overhanging brush and branches that also narrow the usable part of the path on a seasonal basis. Flat Creek Greenway has a particular problem from the large cypress trees along the path in the vicinity of the trailer park. Also, there's some overgrowth along the path near the community garden and the fire station. Number 4, removal of sand and mud after flooding events as needed. Number 5, removal of invasive plants, particularly the Japanese knotweed at the end of Flat Creek Trail near the primary school. So those are the items we've noticed. The commission recommends developing an adopted trail program, starting with the existing trails that can be expanded as the Greenway system expands. Through a program like this, volunteer groups could enhance the efforts of the Public Works Department on an ongoing basis. In addition to trash cleanup, much of the works of items 2, 3, and 4 from above that I just listed could be handled by volunteers with an adopted trail program. So that's my first point. Any questions about
So
maintenance?
this would be, the idea would be community groups might do the adopt a trail, like we've seen other things, adopt a road or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of towns do that. And it would be, once you get the program in place so that you've got, your waivers and tools and kind of directions on how to do it, then you can have a community group, Boy Scout group, or whatever, adopt a specific trail, and they would have specific things that they're supposed to watch for and take care of on a regular basis. It would take some work to make that happen. And I'm sure that if the council decides that's a good way to go, that the commission would do everything, would be willing to jump in and do some research and help figure out how to plan a program like that. The Greenways and Trails Committee, the nonprofit group, says they're willing to be involved in a project like that in interfacing with volunteers from the community. So it seems like it could be a good way to take some of the pressure off
All the town.
the town, Public Works, because there's certain things that they would need to do. But certainly a lot of it could be done through the public.
Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on, point number 2. The commission would like to reiterate the importance of, this is referring to the federally funded project EB 5547A. We would like to reiterate the importance of having a bike lane, not a share row, along 70. This area, let's see, this is in Project 6 of the adopted Black Mountain Bike Plan. It calls specifically for a bike lane in this crucial 2-block area. A share row, which has been tossed around in some of the planning for this EB 5547A, we believe is ill-advised from a safety standpoint, because you've got high-speed traffic coming off of I-40 right there, coming into town, and a share row is where the bikes are in the lane. A bike lane is where the bikes are markedly on the side. And later in town, a share row could be useful, or other places in town. But right here, the commission feels like we should go with the plan that is, if possible, in the Black Mountain Bike Plan. It's also listed this way in the US 70 Corridor Study, which recommends a roundabout. Do you guys know where I'm talking about? This is as you're coming off coming off of the interstate on the east side of town, coming to the west into town. So US Corda study calls for a road diet and a roundabout in that area to slow traffic down, and then also calls for a bike lane for those next 2 blocks up to Terry Estate Drive. So we feel like that's just something we wanted to get in front of the council's ears as that project. And I know that currently that has become, again, a consideration in this project, in the planning of this project, but we just wanted to make sure that that is in front of your ears for safety's sake. Any questions there about that? Point number 3, we would love to see the inside of the I-40 barrel between Veterans Park and the community garden painted white. It could be done with an anti-graffiti paint. And evidently this would require entering into an encroachment agreement with NCDOT. And I believe that we have already entered an agreement about doing the work on the bottom, fixing the bottom of the path, and that's kind of in the planning. That's correct? And this might be something that could be added on to that project, but it would have to get decided on ahead of time. So right now, the ceiling and the walls of that barrel are painted black, and it's really dark in there. And we feel like just painting it white would be a simple solution to go a long way as far as safety in that area.
When you say barrel, are you talking underneath the interstate?
Underneath the interstate, the barrel that goes under the interstate between Veterans
Right.
Park and the Garden Park.
Right. And Josh, what would that, I mean, we have to upgrade that anyway. What
What would it take to get it done? Is that what you're going to ask?
Well, I mean, the suggestion is just to make it white.
I mean, I don't
But
see
we
that
have
as
to-
being an issue. DOT has to approve anything we do in it, but that's,
Right, I don't think that's it. So we have to, but we're gonna do what, 40 or 60 or
Something like that.
$80,000 worth of work on it?
right.
Great. Okay, moving on. Number 4, the commission, we just wanted to put our support behind the 2 plans that the planning department staff and Parks and Recs are already beginning to work on as low-cost, easily achievable projects that will enhance mobility in the town. Both of these would be very visible. One of the things that we always get from our merchants that have supported Greenways over the years is what's happening. And obviously we're all waiting for the big one to happen, the big Riverwalk plan. But in the meantime, these would be 2 items that we feel like would be great to have the public see some progress. While the EB 5547A and B work its way through the system. So the Cragmont Park walking trail, which the Parks and Rec is kind of taking the lead on, and they're working on a circular path in Cragmont Park, just south of what's it called? Tomahawk Park. That would be great. It would expand the walking there at Tomahawk, which gets heavy usage. But we would also like to recommend that we continue on to the next phase of that project, which would include bridges over the creek, heading south to connect to Highway 70 and the sidewalk there at Highway 70. We think it would be very forward-thinking if we have that plan, that expanded plan for that area in place, so that if and when some federal funding or some funding becomes available, we're ready to go with it. And also the other one is the Bicycle Boulevard project. That is project 9 of the Black Mountain Bike Plan, which I think the planning department is already working on. We just wanted to put our support in for both of those 2 projects. Any questions about those?
Does town property about all the way up to 70, or do we need an easement to that?
Town property does, but there's a right of way, but it may be that we would have to, I mean, I don't know exactly how the river's kind of squirrely there, so it may be getting onto the property of that.
MSD easement.
Yeah, an MSD easement, yeah, okay. And finally, the last item is that the Riverwalk Greenway along the river behind the former bylaw is no longer part of the current EB 5547A. And the commission recommends continuing to pursue a walking connection to that existing footpath and the dog park under Highway 9 along the river, connecting to the planned project along Terry Estate Drive. This would be a completely separately funded and planned project, but it's already in the Greenway Master Plan, and we could potentially use, going forward, use some of the planning that's already been done when it was still a part of the big EB 5547A plan. So we feel strongly that this is something that we don't want to lose, that link, that safe passage under Highway 9 over into the Bilo Park and the dog park, even if it's just a spur to get to access that park in a safe way. So that's all.
Great.
Any questions on that
Thank you,
one?
Julie. Any questions for Julia? Any additional questions?
I know you and the committee worked really hard on all this stuff, and you're really dedicated, and I appreciate all the work you guys do.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Josh, we had the consent agenda.
All right, consent agenda. Got a few items here. Adoption of minutes would be 5A. This is the minutes from the December 12th, 2021 regular session meeting, as well as the December 9th, 2021 agenda meeting. 5B is a call for a public hearing for rezoning of 713 NC Highway 9. This will be a request from moving from TR4, which is a residential district, to HB8, which is Highway Business District. That public hearing will be on Monday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. 5C will be a budget amendment for Carver Center solar panel project. I brought this up last month. What we budgeted, we're a little short. The bids did come in a little bit more expensive, so you do have a budget amendment in your packet for $20,336 to cover the rest of that remaining project, which will bring that total to $100,336. Item 5D is a closure of our water capacity improvement. Actually, this is a capital project. We've gotten this work finished. The money that is in this water capacity capital project fund will be moved back into the system development fee capital reserve fund. 5E is a budget amendment to transfer expenses paid for the Swanano River restoration out of the general fund. We did pay some expenses to the Swanano River restoration, which was also set up as a capital project out of the general fund. So we want to move those general fund expenses from year 2019 and 20 to the Swanano River Restoration Fund capital project. 5F would be a budget amendment to transfer restricted fund balance from the police department. So money that comes in through different sorts of things, maybe drug forfeiture, seizures, things of that nature, goes into a restricted fund for the police department. We are requesting to transfer some money out of this restricted fund in order to purchase a patrol car vehicle with this money. 5G is our Greenway Commission ordinance that will now be known as the Active Mobility Commission. I'm ready to say Alderman, but Councilmember King and myself met with some members from the Greenway Commission, talked about this ordinance that council saw last month. We did come to some consensus on it. I will say the changes that we agreed on were not to have a liaison. The council was welcome to come to any meeting they want to. And we also put in there that the commission will be composed of folks that either live in the city limits or the East Buncombe Fire District, either or. And those are the big differences for the commission ordinance versus what it was before our last meeting. And 5H is a budget amendment for Governor's Crime Commission grant. We did receive a grant. This is for the police department in order to purchase some equipment and supplies for the special response team. And that will be your consent agenda.
Council, do you have any questions for Josh on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt it.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great, thank you. We have citizen comments, and the citizen comments are intended toward, toward our items of new business, which are on the agenda in front of you. And in particular, I would point to the discussion of the Buncombe County mask mandate. And that was, I asked for that to be on the agenda, and council was approved it. Because we had a citizen who requested that the next time the county, extended or initiated a mask mandate, we at least have it on the agenda for discussion purposes and to allow members of the public to make comment. And so, as most of you probably know, last week, the county extended the current mask mandate. It was set to expire on January the 3rd, I believe, and it was extended to February the 23rd? 16th. February the 16th. And so, I did not have any reasons or thoughts that it was not appropriate for the town of Black Mountain to follow that. Actually, I just think outside of a very unusual circumstance, and we don't have to follow the county, and each of the municipalities in Buncombe County can chart their own course if they wanted to, as far as mask mandates are concerned. But it's just simply very confusing for our communities, for us to do that. And in addition, the current variant of COVID-19 is spreading so quickly that, that we just need to continue to try to do our best to get vaccinated, to wear a mask, and to be careful. And hopefully we'll get a peak on this current variant that's going on pretty soon and be able to move beyond it. And so hopefully next month we can be on the other side of a mask mandate. That would be a welcome thing for the month of February 2022, wouldn't it? So does any member of the public wish to make comment about any item of new business? Hearing none, we'll move along with it then. Our first item of new business is to appoint someone to a vacant spot on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So we have 2 applicants were received, Larry Perlman and Lauren Dodgen. And so, Savannah, you want to proceed with the process?
Yeah, so because there are 2 vacancies on zoning board of adjustment, and we only received 2 applications, we'll just do it by motion and vote, especially because they are not currently able to meet due to lack of quorum. So we need to get someone appointed so they can continue meeting.
Right, sounds good. So we're not going to do our ballots. I'll entertain a motion from council.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to appoint Larry Perlman and Lauren Dodgen to the ZBA.
Very good. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The golf course snack shop lease agreement.
So it's that time of year again to do our lease for the golf course snack shop. Been in discussions with Karen, who runs the golf course snack shop. She's been pleased with everything and the way things have been going over there for her, and would like to have another year over there as our tenant. And the lease is, I'll let Anna chime in if she wants to, but the lease is pretty much exactly the same as it was last year. The amount's $400 per month. Anything I'm missing?
It is renewable for an additional term of 1 year.
Is that renewable applies to the $400 monthly fee as well? Is that right?
It would, yes.
If for some reason there is something that comes up and that building suddenly becomes much more expensive to us, is there any opportunity for us to raise the rent next year if we needed to, or if they wanted to renew, we would kind of be locked into that 400?
I'm trying to remember where it is exactly, but there is a provision in here that says that you may renegotiate any provision of the lease.
Okay.
And so I think you I don't know that you would unilaterally be able to do that, but you could renegotiate it with the tenant.
I think the way I read it, if she wanted it, she would be entitled to a 1-year extension on the
Yes,
same
it
terms.
is.
Yes.
It is.
Any other questions on the lease? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the lease agreement for the golf course snack shop, the 19th hole, as
So-
presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. So, and we have the discussion of the Buckingham County mask mandate, which I sort of did that when I introduced the new business. But does any member of council wish to say anything about it?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I'd want to say about it real quickly would be just to thank you and Josh for staying on top of watching those numbers and being proactive in your communication and going on with that extension. I think it's the prudent thing to do, and I appreciate both of your leadership on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Bud. So we're on to our public hearing to add text for mobile food vendors and mobile food vendor courts. Jessica. Oh, let me, I need to open the public.
Open public hearing. I have two comments that came in for this.
Oh, okay,
specific-
great, thank you. A motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
The discussion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Okay, we are in the open hearing, and we'll first let Jessica present, and then we'll hear from the public.
Okay, so we're going to talk about food vendor courts and mobile food units themselves. They're two separate entities. Currently, we don't have any regulations for food trucks, and they are related to special event permits only. That's when you see them pop up. So we started working on this in planning board, and everything that we're going to talk about tonight passed unanimously through planning board. It was a very robust conversation, and I think Councilperson King was able to hear some of the nitty gritty of working on that. So we've reviewed the definitions in previous meeting, but just to note that a food court is when you have multiple food trucks in one place and it is a primary use of a parcel, and it can have associated buildings with that, like a kitchen or permanent bathrooms, outdoor seating, and things of that nature. Both mobile food courts and the vendors themselves are allowed on the table of permitted uses in NUM 8, OI 6, CB, HB 8, LI, and HI. These are already districts where restaurants are allowed. So mobile food vendors are going to require a permit, and they would have a small site plan, nothing, overly detailed. It's not engineered drawing or anything like that. They'll show that they have their proper documents from the health department. They can't operate on public streets, sidewalks, or public right-of-ways. They have to comply with setbacks. Of course, downtown, there are no setbacks in the district. And they need to be 10 feet away from other trucks themselves or other structures. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more of that with some of the comments that came in. And they need to have sufficient space to move around for safety purposes. They need to have one on-site parking space per mobile food truck. But if they are in like a parking lot, that number cannot reduce the amount of parking such that the actual buildings there no longer have the required amount of parking that they're supposed to have. Porta potties, temporary toilets are not allowed. All trash and litter has to be dealt with at the end of the day. And these regulations do not apply to permits, like special event permits. So if you have a private event or an event on town property, these rules don't apply. Now, the mobile food courts themselves, you have to get a zoning permit for that. And there has to be a trash can. There'll be some screening requirements for things like dumpsters. Outdoor seating is allowed. Permanent facilities like a kitchen or restrooms are allowed. And permanent power is recommended, and water connections are permitted. They can have taps and hookups and all of that stuff. So those are the two different, things that we're looking at.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So, public comment?
Sure. Start with the short one first. This is John Richardson. I don't know his address, but dear council, thanks for all your time and effort to make Black Mountain a better town. The last 2 years have been unbelievably difficult for all of us, but especially for restaurants. After 12 years of owning and operating a restaurant here in town, I can say that I believe we are all exhausted. I would encourage the town to slow down and not do anything at this point that would potentially affect any restaurant in town. I feel like the current proposal is looking to solve a problem that we are not currently dealing with. I do think that further conversation and discussion around the proposal would be beneficial. Right now, during the slowest period of the year, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. We are all exhausted and extremely nervous about what's going to happen in the next few months and year ahead. I want to make sure that there aren't any obstacles that would impede any of us from being able to stay in business moving forward. Thanks for your consideration. And this is Casey McKissick, the owner of Foothills. Please accept, let's see, Foothills has sold food in the town of Black Mountain since 2002. As a local business owner, heavily invested in brick and mortar in town, I also own and operate 2 food trucks in the city of Asheville. These food trucks provide a significant contribution to our company's revenue and profit margins, with considerably less labor and overhead than our building on Black Mountain Avenue. This dynamic has been amplified by the pandemic and ensuing labor crisis, wherein our seating availability in our highest cost location has been extremely limited by factors beyond our control. The function of our food trucks have quite literally prevented us from having to close our store down in Black Mountain. I'm offering this context to say that sometimes food trucks may be used in harmony and in conjunction with brick and mortar businesses for a variety of reasons. For us, it's spreading out risk, reducing overhead, and investing a portion of our capital in a movable and liquidable asset. This is our 20th year in business, has brought us the opportunity to expand our food service and retail offerings at a new and additional location in Black Mountain under a new concept. This new concept will require a permanently stationed food truck as opposed to building a new permanent kitchen because of the extended timeline for build out and availability of equipment, pandemic, supply chain related, as well as the fact that skyrocketing real estate prices preventing us from investing in more permanent infrastructure facing an unknown future for independent restaurants. I commend the council and cooperators on the text drafted thus far in this ordinance, as I believe the spirit of it to be fair and in consideration of the above. I do have suggestions. Specifically, 5.24C, change language to allow push carts in public areas with approval based on site, size, event, etc. Push carts by design have extremely small footprints that can fit in and greatly enhance public spaces. From a visitor's and locals' perspective, it's the ultimate convenience in a quick and intimate eating experience. 5.24D, change the 10-foot rule to consider exceptions on a case-by-case basis. Some operators may need to be closer than 10 feet due to overall space limitations and/or operational needs. For instance, a food truck may need to be parked directly next to a fixed building to necessitate running or handling food or beverages from a production area, kitchen to a server and/or customer. This 10-foot may require an additional staff member to handle this transition, adding to the number of employees needed on a shift, as well as the overall labor cost to run that shift. Existing setbacks aside, food trucks should not be subject to an arbitrary distance that may hinder operations or financial feasibility without good reason. 5.24H, temporary toilet facilities may be needed or desired by the landowner, leasee in relation to or not of the food truck operator. Temporary toilet facilities will be needed as the town grows and becomes more densely traveled. I suggest removing this entirely and leave the need for temporary toilet facilities up to the private landowner to decide what the business needs. Thank you for your consideration, Casey McKissick.
Thank you,
That's
Josh.
it.
Does any member of the public wish to speak? I'd entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
If there's no discussion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Council, we can discuss.
Could we take Casey's suggestions one at a time?
Yes, we
And
can.
help? Yeah. It would be good.
So
Yeah.
I definitely appreciated his feedback, but I do think I can fill in a few gaps for you. We'll go in order. So I think we touched on the push carts. They are allowed in the context of special events, if you like park rhythms, or if you have a special event permit where you are having a parade or things like that. Beyond that, we have narrow sidewalks in the first place downtown that we are already difficult to navigate with groups, small kids, strollers holding hands, things like that. So that is why we have not advocated for push carts on public sidewalks at this time. So that's the limitation that we felt that we were experiencing in that way. The next one being the 10-foot, oops, sorry.
On the push carts,
Yep.
what if it's not on a sidewalk? What if it's on their back off the sidewalk,
So on private property or public property?
private property?
So these additional requirements would allow that. They describe what, how to be used on private property.
I'm thinking Casey in particular sometimes has a hot dog little push cart, like 4th of July or something, but he could still continue to do that on his property,
Yes.
just not on the sidewalk.
That's right.
Okay.
The next one, the 10-foot rule, this actually is what spawned most of this conversation from the fire department. The fire inspector, we really scratched our heads over this because we are dealing with safety issues that we typically deal with in buildings, but in vehicles that are tagged by DMV. So we talk about fire separation in buildings in one way, but in this scenario, and fire chief is here, he might do this better than me. But a food truck does not have the same fire protection that a building has, but it does have combustibles that are stored and used on site. And so that 10-foot of separation was recommended to us for fire prevention in lieu of having the same sort of standards in the vehicle that you have in a brick and mortar kitchen. So it's not arbitrary. It did come from somewhere. And it was the request of the fire department to see some safety precautions in place that actually started all of this.
Chief, do you care to have any comment to add to that?
Mr. Mayor, the biggest thing is, like you said, with the safety, if you have a grease flash fire, if you have an LP fire, anything like that, especially if it's flash, you're not close enough and readily igniting the brick and mortar combustion next door, so it kind of gives you that safe distance space.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The other is about the temporary toilets. I'm not advocating for temporary toilets downtown. I think there may be a conversation to have about availability of public restrooms downtown, but I'm not sure this ordinance and prohibiting and allowing temporary toilets on private property for the food trucks is going to solve that problem. I think there might be a more holistic way to evaluate that situation. I'm not sure we want to see Porta Johns downtown all the time. And I get it for having a festival or special event or something like that, or there's some sort of public health crisis where we have to put things in different places. But I think on the day-to-day, that really would detract and be sort of, unsightly.
I want to clarify your answer to Councilmember King's question that the push cart hot dog vendor would be allowed to operate, but would require a permit.
That's right. The additional requirements would apply. And these were drafted largely in what people already do, but we would be able to check the boxes. And that way we know that people have the proper certification from the health department and are properly positioned for public safety. And those address those primary questions, I think.
All right. Any other questions, Bill?
I have a question, Jessica. How does this proposed language, how does it look compared to Asheville or other municipalities?
This is a great question. I'm so glad you asked. It is incredibly liberal by comparison. In Asheville, if you have a food truck, you're winding up the sidewalk at the end of the day. It has very strict standards for the site. There's site improvements that can be required. You have to pack it up at the end of the day. You can't be parked overnight. And that's for the actual vehicles themselves. This is much more lenient. It really fits the description of the types of food trucks we have in town now, which was the wish of the planning board. That's probably okay because we don't have as many and we're not as large and we don't have as many opportunities for conflicts between food trucks and other places and other uses. The food court itself is very progressive. You don't typically see that in a small town. So I think that's exciting. I did mention this to town manager earlier. It is something new, and we may have to revisit this after we let it ride for a little bit and come back for some improvements when we see it in action.
So what about the comment by John Richardson about the timing of this, that we're imposing something onerous at a really hard time for restaurant owners.
I actually really disagree with that. I think that this puts some basic nuts and bolts on public safety around an opportunity that is lower overhead outside and is much more accessible during a public health crisis. We've seen outdoor dining and mobile food vendors of all stripes really come online through the last 2 years, which is kind of amazing, in getting creative in how to still enjoy ourselves and provide an economy, but do it in such a way that we protect our own health and the health of our communities.
And just to clarify for the public, and maybe us too, anything currently in existence is grandfathered in, correct?
It would be, yes.
Can you elaborate on that? You know, what, when you, anything currently in existence, what does that mean?
So if you have a food truck today
Mm-hmm.
in the back of your business downtown,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't allow them on public spaces already.
Right.
And it's 8 feet instead away from 10 feet. Charlie Russell's probably asked you politely to scooch it over before, but we're not going to enforce that,
Mm-hmm.
that 10-foot rule.
So for
So
example,
it's a nonconformity.
Okay. So if you were to, you know, if for example, Lookout Brewing has a food truck, Max, you know, if, I don't know if they would need to change anything or not, if they were to add somebody tomorrow, but if Max and Lookout were to part ways and Lookout was looking for someone else, would that new food truck need to apply for a permit, or would is
Yes.
that Lookout space is grandfathered in?
The new person should permit appropriately.
Yes, it would be a non-conforming pre-existing use, which is governed by Chapter 1 of your land use codes. One of the things that we revised during the 160D revisions that we did last spring to try to make it a little more clear. And so the use itself can't be expanded. So they can't increase the intensity of the use that's currently operating. My suggestion would probably be that they go ahead and have a permit issued, even though it may not meet all of the terms of this ordinance, so that the town has something on paper that says who exists and where right now, with a site plan that shows where they're currently operating. And then if that use ceases to exist for a certain period of time, it cannot be replaced with the same use without coming into compliance. I don't have Chapter 1 in front of me right now, but there is some window of time
6
where
months.
it could, that use could abate for a time and be replaced with the same use.
But Anna, if, I think follow up on Doug's question, so if the Max food truck left and another same size food truck, would it be grandfathered in as a use as long as they didn't violate the lapse of time?
So I think
If I had the ordinance in front of me, it would be so much
Yeah,
easier
and
for me to answer that
not
question.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just.
See, I think that it's an accessory. I don't think it's a primary use of the property. So I don't think so. I think if it were a food court that existed today and it had some odd configuration that didn't jive with this, then that would be different, because we're
Primary use
defining that
being
as a
a
principal
distinction.
use, but we don't rate the secondary use. I think that would be my first read of it and how I would typically approach things. But then I would probably call Mr. Sneed or Mrs. Stearns and say, please give me some clarity.
Well, I don't think that our ordinance distinguishes between principal and accessory uses for whether they are conforming or non-conforming.
doesn't.
And so to the extent that that use would be out of conformity with this ordinance, I think it would come under the terms that are in Chapter 1.
Which would probably be, Doug, to answer your question, if the food truck's there now and someone waited 6 months and 1 day to bring one back in after this one left, they would have to abide by the new regulations.
But if Max wanted to swap out with someone else,
Shouldn't be an issue.
okay.
As long as they're not more
Uh-huh.
non-conforming.
It's
So
the
if they're,
exact same truck, just a different company.
that's
Or-
right. So if it's
Similar
8
size.
feet away, they can't become 6 feet away.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So I think of food trucks as kind of serving two purposes here in town. There's the semi-permanent ones like Max or the pizza machine. And then there are ones that come for us for an event, say Pisgah's having a concert, they come out for the day, or there's some other, event at another brewery or something like that. If Pisgah were to bring in a food truck for a concert, that food truck would first need to apply for a permit to serve it, right? So can you elaborate a little bit on what that process looks like, how long it takes?
We can turn around a
cost?
building permit in like 18 hours. So I think this is pretty easy. I mean, this is not, I don't think that this is onerous. There's not like civil engineering drawings. It's back of napkin. It's like, here's the building. This rectangle is my truck. And here's where the driveway is. So I know that we're not, that people have a safe amount of space to operate.
Okay. Do
It's
we have
pretty
a
basic.
cost yet for that permit, or would it be?
A zoning permit is $50. I think that's right. So that's where we would fall into.
Okay. And then if Pisgah were to have 2 food trucks, would they be considered a food court, a mobile food court?
Food courts are the principal use of a property. It is something that exists. I have a parcel, I have these hookups, I have this amount of capacity for these trucks to exist. Now they might come and go, which ones you participate or rent spaces or whatever, but it's kind of like a restaurant, but just food trucks.
Okay. So this space providing 2 or more mobile food vendors, that's only if the space is dedicated to becoming a mobile food vendor court.
You could have more than one on site, but if you were going to, it's about the principal use of that property.
Mhm.
Because primary use is not food truck,
Right.
being a food truck court.
Right.
Now, if you had an empty parking lot and you wanted to turn it into one, then you could do that.
And then, so I guess I'm struggling a little bit with a food truck that may on Tuesday be at Pisgah, on Wednesday be at Lookout, on Thursday be doing a special event at the Baptist church, and then Saturday at the farmer's market. They would need 4 different permits for that.
So the permit, you put the locations where you're going to be, and so you can put all of that into one place. So it's not 4 permits. It's that this permit is mine, and these are the locations I will be in for when I will be there.
As long as you got it in your permit.
That's right.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it'd just be the $150, it wouldn't be for each.
That's right.
That's right.
And could you modify that permit? Over the course of the year, say a new brewery opened up, in town and wanted, wanted my truck there.
Mhm.
Could I
Oh,
call you and
yeah.
modify that
Yes,
permit?
yes. That would be fine.
Okay, great. I know that the zoning where, no TR4, UR8, because that's where restaurants are not allowed to be used.
Mhm.
One of the cool things about food trucks is, they can go anywhere, right? I'm thinking specifically around, maybe someone has a wedding on their farm up like Lakey Gap Road or something like that.
Mhm.
And they have 50 people, they want to hire a food truck to come and set up and service that wedding or that special event or whatever. Right now, as I'm reading it, they would not be allowed to do that. Is that correct?
I think that would still fall under the special event permitting, which is what allows some of the food trucks to operate as part of downtown festivals and things like that.
So if I'm having a private party, I have to get a special.
No,
event
you
permit?
don't have to use it, not for private property, unless you were getting like traffic control or support from the police department
Yeah,
or something like that.
I'm
No.
talking about, I'm throwing a party for 50 people.
No, I think that this is intended for public use. That's my understanding and the purpose of this. It is not that you can't have a barbecue truck at your birthday party. And
I don't think we made that distinction.
that would be my interpretation. I would support clarifying language of that. I don't think that there's any intention to prohibit such thing. I think it's when we're talking about public facing and operating things.
Do you think it needs to be worked on a little bit, Anna?
I think that is a question of what your intention is to allow, because I could see a similar situation, Councilmember Hayes' example is about a wedding at a private residence. But there are an awful lot of churches in town that are in residential neighborhoods that might hold special events. And I don't know that we have an exception here for that. These are intended to cover mobile food trucks that are going to operate in Black Mountain at designated locations over the course of a year. And so if you have a one-off special event where that food truck is only going to be there for that one day, I don't know that we would issue them a permit or need to issue a permit for that. But I also don't know that whether our language currently covers that. I don't think that I have.
I do think the intention was the public facing, not because I do not, we had many conversations about this and I do not recall any conversation trying to regulate. It would be no different. Like right now, if you throw this wedding, we're not saying that your house is now a wedding venue. That's not happening for the zoning purposes any more than it is now a food court because you have, a cotton candy truck and a barbecue truck.
But even if that church is opening it up to the public, as a welcome to our church event type of
I would say the same thing.
And we originally had language in this ordinance that that was temporal, that said it was for food trucks operating for a certain amount of time. And I can't remember why that was part of the planning board's discussion that removed that language. I don't think that it would be difficult to add an exception here to the end of paragraph I that also allows for food trucks at private events that are not permitted by Black Mountain, but are private events of limited duration.
I would propose that we add that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Council, that agreeable to everybody?
That's fine. Yeah.
Great.
I have another question.
Sure, please, go right ahead.
And this comes from when, Josh, you read the email from John Richardson. So I called him when I got that right before the meeting and I asked him if he was going to be here. He said he couldn't be here, but he says, and I have no idea what the history of this discussion is. He's concerned that, for instance, at the ale house, if he wanted to pull in a food truck and it had to be in the parking lot, which I guess is a public parking lot, that's his concern that he stated to me. And it sounds like what this says, this only applies on private property. On public property, you could not have one. Is that correct?
We only have them on private property. On public property as part of a special event permit. So festivals, 5K races, that sort of thing. If he were having an event and he had a special event permit, so he had secured that parking lot for some purpose, he could.
Right. But I guess part of I'm just, the thinking is, the rationale for that is that he can't or anybody can't sort of take over this public space.
That's right.
For private, long-term private use.
It's sort of one of the driving forces for having the ordinance, isn't it?
Well, that's right. People making money, having a private monetary venture on public property
Okay.
becomes
All right.
a problem.
So the town owns that parking lot?
Which where are we talking about?
By the ale, by the brewery is what I was thinking. He
Well,
was talking
behind-
about now, between the brewery and the German restaurant.
No, that's owned by Tyson.
Mhm.
Tyson.
But we're not talking about that parking lot?
That's private.
No, that's
We're
private
talking,
property.
across the street. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, between that and Town Hardware, that parking lot, I guess that's
That's us.
public property. I don't.
Yeah, the
Pretty
one-
sure that's ours.
The one that's paved area.
Yeah, it's
That's
ours.
behind the,
At least the paved area.
like the
is.
paved area, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. I just wanted to clarify in my mind.
Thank you. Was there any other questions or comments?
Are shipping containers considered food trucks? if
No.
they're dropped? No.
It's no motor, no wheels.
Doesn't matter. A shipping container is a building material,
Mhm.
just as a stack of lumber is a building material. Just because it has structure to it and you can walk inside it, does not make it a building. It can be engineered to meet building standards and used like any number, like bales of hay can be, and mud can be, engineered to meet building standards. It's an alternative method of construction and it can be engineered. I get this question a lot. It's not like a Lego. It actually has to be engineered and inspected.
So
Council, no, go ahead.
I'm a real fan of food trucks. I feel like they've really enhanced our community in terms of during the pandemic especially. And I think it's been real helpful to the owners of these ventures to have these flexible options, especially now. So I'd hate to see us do anything that puts a chill on that. It's kind of like a rising tide raises all ships. And I get it that they need to, any place that we condone needs to be safe with the fire situation. And we can't just have people moving a truck onto every public piece of property, whenever they feel like it. I get those two things are concerns. But beyond that, I'm not saying that I see that this is onerous, but I just wanted to say that out loud, how I feel that I want the town to be able to support these merchants and these efforts.
I think short of not having a regulation, this is about the best as we can do. I
Yeah.
think this really hits just the very high points of kind of knowing where they are, knowing for a fact that they have gone through the proper channels with the health department,
Yeah.
how long they're going to be there. It's a use like any other. And I think that this is asking for a bare minimum of just knowledge about them and some spatial relationship to other buildings. It could be onerous, but I don't think this one is.
And I'll also say I did sit in on one of the meetings that you talked about this, and I just want to say thank you to you and to the planning board. They did a tremendous amount of work over several meetings and, went out and talked to merchants and food truck owners and really tried to research it. And the one I was at, one of the merchants was there.
That's right.
And I really appreciated that his concerns were really taken into consideration and y'all worked with him to how could this work better for you. So I felt like that was a really fair and open discussion, and I appreciated that.
I appreciate that. Food trucks are fun, and I think we've all enjoyed them at different points. It is very difficult to deal with something that is not a building when we're talking about uses and codes and things, and it becomes, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that are involved in trying to wrap your head around what actually can apply and how to apply things that are not intended for vehicles. So, yes, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, council? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 0-21-20 as amended with that slight amendment that we discussed earlier. Would you like to read that amendment, Anna?
These regulations do not apply to mobile food vendors operating solely as part of a special event for which a permit has been issued by the town of Black Mountain or as part of a private event on private property when that event is of limited duration.
Great,
I don't know if we need to specify the number of hours, or I feel like that probably covers it.
I guess, sorry, on that note, would a concert at Pisgah apply as a special event on private property for a limited duration?
With that language, yes.
Well, if they need us to do anything, if they need our police protection.
No, sorry. No, well, I mean, I'm assuming they don't, when they have a concert, maybe they do, I don't know how that works, but, would that be the same as not a special event permitted by the town, but a special event on private property that does not require
I
a permit?
think the difference for me would be if this person is coming every Friday all summer long, that's one thing. If it's this Friday night and this one food truck is showing up for that concert, then
Well, I know I'm confused about this because if Pisgah's having a food truck down there, they're in the business of selling beer and
Mhm.
food.
Yeah.
And so I don't get where that's a private event. Now, if somebody's come in.
that's
came
true.
in,
That's
Somebody came in and said, hey,
Nope, yep,
here's
I
a
see
check.
that.
I want the whole bloody thing. Close it to
I
the
agree.
public. That
Nope,
would be
I
a
agree.
different matter.
I agree. Nope, you're totally right.
Wedding reception
Yeah.
or whatever.
It's not a public event.
It's
Right.
not gonna be everybody from the neighborhood.
Right. That's right.
But a church who was opening it up to the public said, come one, come all, we're celebrating the church, that's still considered a,
Church isn't in the business of selling food and drink they're a church for one thing. So they can kind of, it's a little bit different, but they're not in the business of doing that. And they're not charging for it. I mean, they're paying for it. It's a gift.
We don't really know that.
Well, then if a church is going to go into business selling food, then they're selling food. And I think that they would need to get a permit.
Yeah, it's the vendors
sell
are
food,
getting it, not the owner. So I think there is a market difference between I'm having a private event to serve, my 50 wedding guests versus I am a business who is having another business on my property for business.
I also think it's entirely possible for this permitting process to work out in such a way that, there are a limited number of food trucks operating in town.
That's right.
And once they have been in contact with the town and have a permit to operate at any one location, throughout the year when they've been hired for a different event, they will be able to call and just add that location to their existing permit. And so I don't know that it would be particularly onerous, even if they had to get a permit that allows them to operate at something like Pisgah, where they're having a concert series or something. Or when the church is having a special event and a particular food truck is going to show up for that. I think I understand the proposed exception really to apply to private events where someone is having a birthday party, a wedding reception, something that is not open to the public. They're not selling tickets to the public. They're not inviting the general public in, that we would not apply this permitting requirement to food trucks in those instances only.
That's right. It's more of akin to like a catering service in that situation.
yeah. So I agree with that. Really, I brought that up more as an issue with the permitted use of the TR4 and URA, categories. So I'm on board. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution as amended.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Thank you. Good discussion. And Anna, do you have anything for the town this evening?
I do not, Mr.
Very good. We
Mayor.
appreciate you being here this evening. How about you, Josh?
Couple of things real quick. We will be, town offices will be closed Monday the 17th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And then just to echo what Mayor Harris said at the beginning of the meeting, we will have our special call meeting Friday morning, 8:30, talk about finances. And then I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody just to check your calendars for February. In my performance plan that I submitted to everybody, I've got in here to do a strategic planning session with the council and mayor.
Good.
So I'm going to send out an email. We'll try and coordinate our schedules, but that's all from me.
Do you have an update on the FEMA funds?
How long do you have? So the FEMA funds for the three projects that we got damaged, or the three pieces of property we got damage on, they came back and they had folks out here that did a damage assessment, and they gave me they told us that they would give us about $30,000 for everything, which is nowhere close to where we need to be to get that reimbursed. So the option for us is to get quotes from folks, which is what I'm working on now, to submit to FEMA. I think when they come out and do the damage estimates, they just do a baseline, and it's just not even close to where it needs to be as far as the cost. So I'm in the process of doing that now. I'll try to update you every month.
All right. Council, anybody have anything they want to share with the public?
I have two things. I wanted to make sure everyone knows that the town has crafted a survey regarding composting to give people a chance to share what they want from the town in terms of the composting service and so on. That's available on the website. It's on the town Facebook page, and there's also hard copies at the public library. So if the more town input we get, the better the whole thing turns out in the end, right? So I really hope a lot of folks, it just takes a minute, honest, to answer a few questions. The second thing I wanted to just mention was around the ARP, the American Rescue Plan funding. It's been a while since it got, since we found out that there was going to be funding, but it's taken so long to develop guidelines around what is eligible to spend it on. I mean, it just came out, it was 471 pages. And, you know, oof, but fortunately they produced a kind of a shorter overview of it. But at any rate, I just wanted to suggest that the council schedule a special workshop on that topic to go over the guidelines, what's eligible, what's not. I think it'd be real helpful for us and also the public to hear. And also, I'd like for us to, at that time, to determine a timeline for public input regarding this money and how it might be best utilized.
Now, you know, we've already committed the first wave to those two big
I know we've
projects.
committed a
But
little
then,
bit of
but
it,
then
but
we got the
there's,
whole second half to go. That's
exactly,
right.
exactly.
Right. Well, I think that's a great idea. I think that'd be perfectly fine. And Josh can reach out to us
Yeah,
for scheduling.
we've got, yeah, I'll do that. We've got we do these, they're called ARP office hours with the school of government every week. We're going to do that this Thursday, and I'm real excited about getting some guidance to
Right.
make sure we're on the right
Right,
path. But we'll send out some emails
Yeah.
and get something scheduled.
yeah, I
That
just
sounds
think
right.
it's real important for the public to know that they're not just sending us a check and say, have a good time. I mean, there are
Right.
very clear guidelines, and, I mean, it's not always so clear, but there are definitely guidelines. And I know I have a lot to learn on this topic, and I know that, I think the public would appreciate a chance to hear more about it too.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none. Department heads, chief. Nice to have a police officer in the hall. Appreciate you being here. Have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.
Composting.